What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? It is a beautiful Labor Day weekend here in the States. And joining me today, we have connected with the three-man weave. First up, we got my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Ready to be here. So happy that we have the three-man weave back. It's been a while since we did one of these.
It's been a minute. We're going to kick it into full gear. And of course, to round us out, we have our podcasting cousin from across the pond, the leader of the Taylor gang, the one and only Adam Taylor. Adam, happy to have the three-man weave united together once again.
I love you guys.
It's just such a nice gathering when we get the chance to get all three of us together. You know, we get busy during the week, and so sometimes we can't. I mean, even the other day, Adam, when you and I were podding, it felt like, man, this has been a while, even though obviously we interviewed Seth Partnow together. But, you know, we went basically an hour and we didn't have that much to talk about, and we still found a way to make it an hour. So I love when I get to get all of our guys together here in one space.
I love you guys.
Love you too, brother. And I love basketball, and I love FIBA basketball, Will. I'm super excited to talk about the FIBA tournament because although USA ended up losing to Lithuania, my Lithuanian brethren, the games have just been so exciting, and it's really cool to see the world kind of really showing that they've caught up with the USA.
Yeah, man. I think, you know, I love when we get, you know, FIBA basketball and stuff like this because number one, I love when stuff's on during the day. So I have an excuse to watch sports at inappropriate times for my other work schedule. So now I'm just kind of multitasking throughout the day, watching highlights, watching games. So as you're listening to this, you know, there's a chance if you're listening to this on the podcast version, maybe you're listening on Tuesday, you might be watching, you know, maybe you're multitasking. Maybe you're listening to us and watching Italy and USA right now as we're actually talking about it. But FIBA has been very, very exciting. And, you know, like to your point, Greg, you know, that Lithuania game against the USA, they were just on fire in that game. You know, of course, the shot against Anthony Edwards in the left wing, you know, just I don't even know how that guy, he even had the smile because there was no way he knew that that shot was going in. But you're right. It is crazy to see the amount of talent spread out across the world in this tournament. And Adam, I know you've been doing a lot of coverage for it. Has there been any part of FIBA or any player or any country that's kind of stood out to you while you've been doing the coverage for it?
Yeah, I mean, Latvia is one that I've really enjoyed watching. Their ball movements their ball movements just crisp as hell. Other than that, no, like Team USA, I've been watching. I watched a little bit of France, but they're gone now. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen. That's German. And au revoir. There we go. We got it right. I live right next to France. It's like literally a 45-minute flight. Don't speak a fucking word. Other than that, no, not really, man. I've been just kind of enjoying watching everybody freak the hell out about whether the world has caught up or Team USA haven't put together an A team. I've seen people call it the F team, the C team. So I've been enjoying the semantics in those arguments more than I've actually been enjoying the basketball, mainly just because every time I watch FIBA, all I think about is I want to watch Kristaps Porzingis set a screen for Tatum and then Tatum take a one dribble pull up, and then I get sad. It upsets me.
Well, hopefully that's coming soon. You know, we are roughly about a month out from training camp right now, so I know that, or the first preseason game. Training camp will be before that, but the first preseason game is roughly about a month away or so. So we're getting closer to hopefully if Porzingis will be ready for that. But you know, with FIBA, like I think it is interesting that part of, you know, has the world caught up is a little bit, you know, for me, somewhat of a boring conversation because they fucking caught up. Like we've talked about, you know, the top MVP candidates are Nikola Jokic, are Giannis Antetokounmpo, are Joel Embiid, are Luka. Not like the biggest question of the NBA is when is there going to be another American MVP? Like, I mean, that's a real genuine question. And you know, Booker and Tatum are probably the best bets. Or if you get, you know, one last hurrah from Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, those are kind of like the four options you're looking at. So it's like no kid in the world has caught up. And I think it's really cool. And even though, yes, like you mentioned, Adam, like, is this the C team? Or I don't know where to rank this particular Team USA, but I kind of like the fact that because it is this version of Team USA, which I think has been fun, by the way. I think it's actually been really fun watching these younger guys play. But I do think it makes it a little bit more even because you just don't quite know if there's going to be that other gear that this Team USA has when certain teams in this tournament get it going, like you saw the other day. And, Team USA had trouble, getting that game into a place where they could really grab a hold of it and just never got there.
Well, the thing is that all these teams have over the USA is they have the cohesion. They've been playing together as a group for a long period of time. They have a system that when they like sign up for the national team at their country, they understand the type of basketball that they're going to be playing, right? And the FIBA game is different from the USA game. So if we're not sending our most talented people over there, like that inherent advantage that we would have just having the most talent goes away, right? We still have probably couple of the most athletic dudes in the tournament, probably the most like pound for pound talent across any roster, but that's not enough to make up for all of the cohesion that we see from these teams. Like the Lithuanian team, they've been playing the same brand of basketball for the past 20 years. And Team USA is trying to implement this Steve Kerr led, read and react system that they want to do. They're trying to switch as much as they can on the defensive end. But then you see guys like in the FIBA game, like post play is so much more prevalent. And Austin Reeves, who had been doing such a good job, fouls out, barely making an impact because Lithuania just said it doesn't matter. Even if it's a big man or a small forward, we're going to post this dude up and just make him play post defense, because nobody in the NBA has to play post defense because it's not part of the offense, right? So it's not even a skill that people work on that frequently. So it's just such a different game. And it's just been fun to watch Team USA try to figure it out. It's been fun to watch Anthony Edwards clearly establish himself as like, you mentioned Tatum, you mentioned Booker, like Edwards. When is he going to work his way into all first team All NBA or MVP conversations? It looks like it's going to happen sooner than later.
Has Edwards outgrown Team USA? Does he need to go to a bigger team? I saw somebody tweet that yesterday. That's not my fault. Somebody tweeted that yesterday. Anthony Edwards has been, and we're going to use a Lithuanian word here, he's been Dega, which means on fire.
Well done.
Anthony Edwards has been legit. I think that him, Banchero's had good moments. Brandon Ingram struggled hard, though, I think, throughout most of the tournament. Jaren Jackson Jr. hasn't looked like the defensive player of the year that he was with Memphis, but again, it's a different system. And the biggest rule change for me that you kind of have to adjust to when you're in FIBA is the fact that you can just load yourself up in the paint, and you can kind of just hang there and do what you want to do. When you're running a switch-heavy offense, as you said, against teams that can just post you up, and they don't really have to play hot potato with the rock around the post, around the block, it gets difficult, man. And that's why I was shocked that they didn't bring like somebody a little bit bigger with experience. Like Walker Kessler's got the size, right? He's got the size, he's got the strength. He's built for that FIBA game in terms of body, physique, technical ability. But he's not a low post guy. He's not somebody that's going to drop step you, give you one shoulder, like drop his shoulder barge into you. Like you needed a Dwight Howard, or obviously Dwight's too old now, would have ran out of gas in about 33 seconds against Lithuania. But somebody along that, somebody along those lines, like, maybe AD is probably too frail to play in that. This is kind of where I wanted to lead us to. If you had to choose one more American big man that is better designed for the FIBA game to deal with that post play, who would you choose? American-born big man, because most American big men now play more of a 5-out system or a rim running system. Who can go in there?
I would bet on Bam, just like in a pinch. I know he's not like, he doesn't fit the description that you're talking about, but if I'm sending another American big there, I would send Bam just because of that versatility that he offers, and he's just like such a dog. Jaren Jackson, Will and I were actually talking about this yesterday because we were hanging out for a little bit, and we were talking about how Jaren Jackson has always had like a behemoth next to him, right? He's had a Steven Adams next to him. He's had a Valanciunas next to him, because they understand he's not really built for the low post. He's more of like a classic power forward in the sense of the word, which is a good transition to when we eventually get to our list here. But Bam would be the guy that I would probably go with. Is there somebody else you're thinking of? Like, do we call up Jared Sullinger?
I mean, he's probably got more experience, right? Playing this type.
Do we go to Beef Stew? Do we bring beef stew?
That's who you go with. You go with beef stew, and you fuck the drop step. We're just gonna run guys over.
His teammate, I did see somebody mention this today on Twitter. It was just kind of like I can't remember who it was, but like Jalen Duren was a guy who's just an animal on the boards, right? That's he's 19 years old, so obviously there's probably some concern about his age and trying to the Warriors scheme has been famous over the last couple of years for young guys not being able to pick that up quickly. So I don't know if that's exactly where you want to go,
right? Brooke Lopez.
Jared Allen came to my mind as like as a guy maybe that I'm with you. I would have gone Bam as like my default, but I think those other guys are potentials in it. But you've seen, right? It's pretty crazy to watch how in Team Canada has the same problem, right? Where they're running out Kelly Olynyk and Dwight Powell. Like, in the game they lost to Brazil, they just got killed on the boards. Like that was a big part of that game. And then Lithuania just bullying, the US along with their hot 3-point shooting. It is just very different how the FIBA game plays out versus what you see in the NBA. And I think it's part of what makes it so interesting for us who's not obviously involved in international basketball all the time, but then to see these guys that we do watch year in, year out try to adjust on the fly.
Yeah, I also want to say. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. I was just going to say I'd like to see I want to see a Team USA where it's an All NBA recently retired team.
Ooh.
So if you go to the World Cup, you can only pick guys that have retired within the last 5 years. So from the NBA, so you could get like Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade. Has Dwayne Wade been 5 years now?
He just went into the Hall of Fame. He just went into the Hall of Fame, so I think he's right at 5
maybe
years.
ISO Joe.
ISO Joe. We can go poach the big three. They've got some guys over there that we can go get.
I just thought that'd be a nice little a 10-man roster of 34 to 57-year-olds because everyone plays in the league until they're nearly dead at this point. And
this is kind of the crazy part, right, Adam? Like back in the day, this used to all be just the top college kids. And you think about, you look at, Greg, to your point, Team USA trying to put together a team of NBA pros together and how, the playing field's a lot more level. Imagine if USA was coming into this with just the top college kids. And obviously, college from the time that I'm talking about pre-1992, it was all, juniors and seniors that were guys that would go on to become NBA Hall of Famers, and you just don't have that anymore. So it's a very different college landscape. But the idea of sending 12, 13 college kids to go compete with these international teams, like that's exactly. They would get it wouldn't even be like the fact, like if US could come home with a bronze medal, that would be a massive achievement with a college team.
Even if they made it to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like making it to the quarterfinals would be amazing. I would imagine they'd be one of the worst teams in the tournament. But I think that just to finish out the types of guys that I would want to take advantage of the post play, Zion, right? Zion's got to be there. He probably wouldn't hold up on the defensive end, but there's nobody that would be able to cover him, on the post. And Julius Randle, who's just like kind of a poor man Zion, right? So in the post there, I think both of those guys would be interesting in international play.
Yeah, I like that. That's that would be fun to see some of those guys in there. We'll see what happens when it gets to the Olympics. We'll see what that is. USA qualified, Canada, they'll qualify, so they'll be interesting to see who they bring. But quarterfinals, they're starting on Tuesday. So as you're listening, you may be watching the quarterfinals right now. Some really exciting matchups: USA and Italy, Slovenia and Canada, Luka versus Shea. That will be a fun one on Wednesday. So we'll check back in later in the week as the FIBA tournament wraps up. But Greg, you mentioned it. Today we are moving on with our top 5 lists in the Eastern Conference. Today we are talking about power forwards. So get that Command Shift X ready. We're going to make a list. All right. So we've gone so far we've done our point guards. So far we've done our shooting guards. We've done our small forwards and we've done our duos. That means it's time to do power forwards in the Eastern Conference. First time we got we had the 3-man weave for the duos. We had the 3-man weave united here for the position specific top 5 list. So this will be a 100% official GWE ranking that we have for y'all. So Greg, let's share that screen for those watching on YouTube here. And so as we always do, number one, what I think we need to do is we need to go through and define the candidates that we're qualifying for this particular position. So we'll kind of go through the teams here, and then we can start to kind of go we'll take turns here, command shift Xing the players that we need. But Greg, take us through the list of you were the one that made this initial list of the players that we're going to walk through.
Yeah, and just to be fully transparent here, what I did to make this list is I took your small forward list, I copy and pasted it, and I just removed all the small forwards, replaced them with power forwards. So it's a little disorienting to me to look at this and not see it in alphabetical order. But apparently you didn't want to go alphabetical order. So it's just set up whatever way you
by divisions.
Oh, it's by division. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So it's alphabetical order within the divisions.
I don't know. I copy and paste from a website.
Yeah,
so
that makes a little bit more sense. Okay, good. Now there's some organization to it, so I'm happy about it. All right, Celtics. Are we all assuming Horford's going to be the power forward this year?
I actually kind of disagree with this, but I'll see what Adam says.
I've been very vocal on the fact that I do not want to see too much Rob KP sharing the floor together. So Horford is my choice at power forward.
So I more disagree in the sense that I think I would probably classify Porzingis as the power forward versus Horford, and Horford would be the center. But it feels like I'm outvoted here 2-1. But that was kind of the way I was in. If we're using, and I think it's going to depend on matchups, which one will be you could really look at as the power forward center. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But definitely in my mind, I kind of slotted KP as the nominal power forward with Al Horford as the center, but I'm happy to roll with Al Horford as that power forward.
To me, it's more about the defensive role that the guy is going to play on the team.
Me too.
I think Porzingis is going to be in that like classic drop in the center, kind of anchoring the defense, and Horford will be more likely to be switching out on the perimeter. I don't think you see much of that from Porzingis. So I would probably go Porzingis at the 5, Horford at the 4.
All right.
For the Knicks, I think it's pretty obvious Julius Randle would be their power forward. The Nets, you're really choosing between Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith here. I think Cam Johnson is probably more of a modern power forward than Finney-Smith. I see Finney-Smith more as a classic wing. I think they're both probably more wings than power forwards. Are you guys cool with Cam Johnson here?
I'm good with it.
I'm down.
Yeah, he's more fun to talk about anyway than Dorian Finney-Smith. 76ers, PJ Tucker, I guess, is still their power forward. They're hanging on to that system, whatever that system is. The Raptors, we've talked about, Adam, like we don't know any of the positions on the Raptors. At some point,
this is the 4th time Scotty Barnes has been listed for a position.
So, positionless basketball, baby. There is no position anymore.
That's what the Raptors are doing. So Scotty Barnes, are we cool having him here, Will?
Yeah, we've already put Siakam in one of the top 5, so I'm cool with Scotty Barnes being here in the 4 spot.
Okay, for the Bulls, it's Patrick Williams. For the Cavs, it's Evan Mobley. For the Pistons, I guess it's Beef Stew because Jalen Duren's going to be their center, right? So Beef Stew probably is their starting power forward. I don't know if that's.
I mean, they play a little bit like the Celtics. They do that double big. If you look at like just the who has actually started games for them last year, they did do a lot of Duren and Beef Stew. So I think Beef Stew is the way to go here.
And Beef Stew's better than Bagley, so let's get Bagley out.
Everybody's better than Bagley. He's just Badly. He's Marvin Badly.
For the Pacers, I'm assuming their lottery pick, Jarris Walker, will get the nod at power forward, but Obi Toppin is on the team now too, and Obi has a chance to like kind of bust out this year. Do you guys have a preference which one we go with?
I just don't think you can rank somebody that hasn't played a minute of NBA basketball yet. I think it's unfair. Plus, Obi's got real name, no gimmicks.
Yeah, let's give Obi some love. We'll throw Obi on there. He's not going to last very long, so let's let him have some shine for a moment.
Okay, and then for the Bucks, we have Giannis. For the Hawks, Sadiq Bey. Now that John Collins is gone.
Yep.
For the Hornets, PJ Washington, who just signed
his deal,
just
three
signed his
years,
deal.
48, I believe. Yeah, it's a pretty good deal for the Hornets with PJ. I like PJ Washington.
Yeah, he's a good player. I don't know if he's going to crack the top 5 here, but he'll be in the discussion. For the Heat, I guess it's still Kevin Love.
This was an interesting one. I'd be curious to see what Adam was thinking because it is really weird to think about who it is for the Heat. I mean, it's not Caleb Martin, but I was thinking maybe it's Caleb Martin, but that doesn't also make any sense. So yeah, I think Kevin Love is the way to go.
I don't think you've got another choice. Did they move on from Yurts then?
No, he's still there, but he's not going to start. He's not going to be.
Yeah, he's not going to play.
Yeah.
Wait, what name did you just say?
Yurtseven?
Omar Yurtseven. I don't know. I think I said that right.
Yeah, I just said Jurt Sven. I just Sven as in Sven.
Yeah. And then
I think Kevin Love's good.
Kevin Love, okay. For the Magic, Paolo, and then for the Wizards, Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, I think that looks good. I got no objections over here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's Drip King Kyle Kuzma.
The sweater god.
Him and Jordan Poole are going to be breaking hearts all over the country. All right.
So they won't be breaking backboards, that's for fucking sure.
So for this exercise, Adam, the way we've been doing it is we've been starting just by eliminating people first. And then when we get to the top, like 8 candidates or so, we say like, all right, these are probably like the guys that we need to have in there. I'm sure looking at the list right now, we can already kind of get a feel for who our top 5 is going to be. But we're going to start by eliminating, just because this allows us to talk a little shit about people, but also give some backhanded compliments and all that. I'm going to give you first Command-Shift-X elimination on this list here, Adam. So who do you want to get rid of first? Who do you think is the worst power forward in the Eastern Conference?
Go down, let me see.
Or the least best?
Man, because I think that he's past his best. I think I still give you a little bit, but oh man, this is tough because I want to say Kevin Love real bad because I'm just like, he's old now, but at the same time, we're looking at a list.
Who's the other guy that you're considering?
Probably Bay. Maybe, yeah. I think
you're in the right ballpark, man. I mean, I think either way, you can't go wrong here. One of these guys is getting snipped very quickly here.
Yeah, do you know what? Because Kevin Love's all name, no game at this point. Shout out Keith Smith for that phrase. I want to go with Kevin Love. We're going to remove. Plus, Heat fans are unbearable on Twitter, and this is my revenge. So we're going Kevin Love. Fuck you, Heat fans. So,
all right. Well, you get the next elimination here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Adam already named it. It's probably Saddiq Bey, and I like Saddiq Bey. This was when he was kind of like being floated around as a potential trade target during the deadline last year. I thought it was at least an interesting name, depending on the price for the Celtics to go take a look at. He's just fine, I think there's some guys here that have at least higher upside than what Saddiq Bey gives you. So that's why I probably would cut him before them. But it's between him and PJ Tucker. And I'll take Bey for now, because I know at least Tucker, you're still looking in the postseason. He is going to give you, that quote unquote toughness, whatever. There's something to it with Bey. It's, it's just, like I said, it's fine.
Yeah. And I think like Saddiq Bey is another one of those guys that is probably more of a classic wing than a power forward here. So for this list, I felt like the power forward was probably the most outdated, like obsolete position in the game as I was going through this. There are a few guys in here, like a Julius Randle, who would have been a power forward in, whatever era they played in. But a lot of these guys, I'm like, yeah, you're really more of a wing than anything. But
I think to your point, Greg, I think it's shooting guard and power forward. Those are the two that you look at. And it's like, this is all just consolidated to wings, or you're that Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero looking at like shooting guards, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like there's this kind of like weird in between. Shooting guards and power forwards definitely feel like the two most outdated out of the 5 positions.
I'll just go guards, wings, bigs. Yeah. I don't even say the word forward anymore, because most forwards can slide down and most guards can slide up at least 1 or at least 2 guards. So I'll just go guards, wings, bigs. But I agree. I think power forward is probably the most antiquated position.
Antiquated, yeah.
That's what I learned it from reading, man. I learned it from reading.
It's one of those things. Like I was reading this like philosophy book. I guess philosophy is maybe not the right word, but it's called Beyond Biocentrism, and it just like talks about like where consciousness comes from. And there are all these words in there where I'm like, I know this word, I've seen this word so many times in my life, but I don't know that I've ever heard it. So they're like, this morning I was just reading these words out loud and then going to Google to make sure I was saying them right. Yeah.
Is it one of those things where you're reading it in your head, but it almost ruins the flow because you're like, I'm not sure if I'm saying this word correctly. And so then you just like lose your train of thought about all the other context surrounding, whatever it is you're reading.
Posthumous was the one that used to get me. I always used to just go posthumous. And then I remember I was at my wife's graduation last year, and they were like, and we're giving this one out to so-and-so like as a posthumous degree. I'm like, posthumous. And then it's dawned on me, like, dude, you've been saying this wrong like all of your life, and not one person has ever been like, dude, just it's posthumous, okay? Like, why couldn't someone?
So you've been saying it out loud that way, not just in your head.
Yeah, like verbally. Like,
oh,
I
that's
mean,
funny.
how often do you use posthumous? It's not like it's
That's true.
not, you know what I mean? I've probably done it twice in my entire life, and both times I've probably been at a bar discussing somebody famous.
I think it's funny you saying it out loud, because I definitely have certain words in my head that, like, if I'm trying to remember how to spell it, I'll like for some reason Wednesday is how I always just like say it in my head as I'm writing it out. But obviously I don't say that, but that's obviously a more common word that you're gonna use more than posthumously.
February is how I say it. You know what I mean? But I'm the same, man. And like this job, like covering the league, especially overseas, like friendships go out the window anyway. So I'm barely outdoors as it is because work. So like I'm reading all the time, and people use nice words, and I learn these words, and then I go to use these words, and I'm like, I don't have a clue how they're meant to sound. Chagrin was another one. Chagrin. Yeah. And I'm like, chagrin. Char grill.
Char grilled. Why was he char grilled?
Much to his chagrin. I love that.
And it really chagrin. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
Well, much to the chagrin of PJ Tucker, I'm getting rid of him next. How's that for a transition there?
I like that. You've done well, my son. You've done well.
All right, back to Adam. Who's the next guy that you want to get rid of here?
Sorry, the dog's barking. Someone's walking in my house. Let's have a look. I'm gonna go with. Unfortunately, PJ took us off the list. I like my boy Obi, but he's just not ready. Obi's got to go.
You're going Obi before beef stew?
I love beef stew.
Adam doesn't have it within him to get rid of beef stew. That's his guy.
Beef stew is great. I would like to see him in Boston at some point. All right, well, who you got next?
It's beef stew.
Let's
just keep it simple here.
At this point, you're looking at beef stew and like PJ probably.
Yeah, Pat Williams is in that combo as well as somebody that I might cut. But once again, I think there is still a potential upside to Pat Williams that I would give at least a little longer of a leash to. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think beef stew, and then I think it becomes between Pat Williams, PJ Washington. You know, I'm not trying to besmirch Al Horford, but we're getting close to the Al Horford territory here, just with given his age. You know, you never know when that's gonna turn into a very real thing. But I think we're starting to get closer to Al Horford. I think I'd look at, it's gonna be your pick here, Greg, but I think I'd look closer at Pat Williams and PJ Washington a little before Al, but we're getting close.
Yeah, I think with Pat Williams, the thing with him is his measurables and just like his actual physical like body type, he looks like Kawhi Leonard, right? Yeah. And there are like moments where you're like, oh, I see like those long freaking arms, those huge hands, his ability to be disruptive on the defensive end. He's kind of got that mechanical looking jumper as well. So a lot of his game reminds me of Kawhi, and I want to like keep convincing myself that he could be a, not maybe like a C version of Kawhi, like maybe what everyone thought Kawhi was going to be in like throughout his career. And then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, Kawhi Leonard is like this freaking good, where he's the best player in a championship team. I don't think Pat Williams is ever going to be there, but I think he could be what everyone thought the original ceiling for Kawhi Leonard was. Yeah. So if that makes any sense to you guys. So I think I still like Pat Williams here. I'm going to get rid of PJ before Pat Williams, even though I think PJ's had a better career up until this point. Remember, the list is like power forwards that we're expecting to be good this season. So I think Pat Williams is going to make a little bit of a leap. So I'm going to get rid of PJ.
I think the way you can argue this as well against PJ is the fact that nobody had any interest in him this offseason.
True.
Right? I know there was some peacocking from the Hornets where they were like, we're going to match whatever anybody offers, but I don't think that was true. I don't think they had the cap space to do that after fixing things with LaMelo and signing him to the extension. There wasn't enough interest. Whereas I asked myself, if Patrick Williams was a free agent, is it really lasting until all the money's dried up before somebody else? No, it's not. People are going to be throwing big numbers at him very quickly. And to me, that kind of puts him ahead of PJ Washington on the spot anyway.
I like that reasoning actually a lot. Are we in Al Horford territory here?
Al Horford wins the list.
He's in the top 5.
It's a Celtics podcast. Al Horford's number 1. We're on like no bias. Obviously, no, we are in Al Horford territory right now.
So yeah, I mean, I think this is where it actually, like, the top 5 is probably going to be a little bit easier to get to, but like, I think
we'll run it down right now, Greg, just for those listening. Who we got?
So we have Al Horford, Julius Randle, Cam Johnson, Scotty Barnes, Pat Williams, Evan Mobley, Giannis, Paolo, and Kyle Kuzma. So a lot of these guys are living kind of in the same area. So I think I would probably go Al Horford here, just because I'm a little bit worried about that age cliff that he might fall off of. Is that anybody want to get rid of somebody else before Horford?
It's tough, right? Like, because the hardest part is we watch Horford more than we watch everybody else. So we're very aware of his strengths and weaknesses. And then I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'll probably watch Cam Johnson the least out of everybody on this list. Mm-hmm. So then I'm inclined to say Cam Johnson, even though I know Cam Johnson is probably at this point better than Horford.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm having that question mark on it, I'm going to have to say, no, you can remove Al Horford for me. But I will say that I haven't seen enough of Cam Johnson to actually have a fair opinion.
Well, I'll let you make the decision here. Horford or Johnson?
That's a tough one, right? Because I think they just give you, they have very different games out of like, what you're going to get. Because I think Cam, to the point of what actually is a power forward, he's one of those guys that is a little bit more malleable and really could be considered technically more of a wing. Like him and Bridges can be somewhat interchangeable as power forward, quote unquote, power forwards, wings. They're going to, Dorian Finney-Smith, who we talked about, like 3 of them are going to share the court potentially with Ben Simmons. And then you get a whole Raptor situation where it's, 1 through 4 with Nick Claxton, and they'll just, they could cover any of those positions, for the most part. So, I think it's tough because it's just a difference of style. But I think right now, because I think Pat Williams is in this conversation as well. I think it's Pat Williams, Cam Johnson, and Al Horford are the next probably 3 cuts, the order. But I think I'd probably go with, I think we should just cut all 3 of them. So I think those are the 3 cuts. And then I think we kind of get to, all right, how do we get to our top 5 with what's remaining?
Okay, cool. Let's take our last break and then we'll hit the top 5.
All right, so we're almost at our top 5 here now. So here's what we got left that we've got to decipher through. We've got Julius Randle of the Knicks. We've got Scotty Barnes of the Raptors. We've got Evan Mobley of the Cavs. Giannis, duh. We've got Paolo from the Magic, and we've got Kyle Kuzma from the Wizards. So this is definitely, I think, when you just immediately think about power forwards, say for maybe, Scotty Barnes, like I said, we've had him at 4 different positions. These are the guys that you typically think of. So now I think this is where it's going to get really tough. I mean, obviously, I think it's pretty easy to know who's the one guy that we can save till the very end. That's, I think, very clear cut. I think who 2 through 5 is going to be is a little bit more murky. Who do you, and let's go with you, Adam, here. Who are you looking at as the next guy that you think should get that old Command Shift X?
I think because of the weight he carries for his team, because 2 out of the last 3 seasons, he's been one of the better players in the East in terms of production, in terms of actually single-handedly winning a team towards the postseason. I think Julius Randle needs that second spot, man. And I know people are going to disagree there, but for me, he's done so much for the Knicks. He had that down season, not last season, the season before, but overall, he's kind of transformed.
I mean, he's made 2 All-NBAs in the last 3 years.
Like 2 All-Stars as well.
Speaks for itself. Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, Julius Randle goes right behind Giannis. I know there's some people that aren't big fans of Julius's game, but for me, I think that the dude's a stud. It is what it is. So for me, he's straight after Giannis. I don't know if anyone else agrees.
Yeah, no, I think it's fairly obvious that he would be the number 2 guy. Otherwise, you're just kind of hoping that Paolo makes another jump this year. He was amazing last year. He looks great for Team USA, as you alluded to earlier, Adam. I think you're probably looking at those 2 guys because there's also everybody else at this point in the list is fairly young. Kuzma's probably the guy that falls outside the top 5 here. Would you say that he's number 6, Will? And all the young guys are kind of in there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally on board. I think Giannis and Randall are obviously the easy 1-2 that we're looking at here. So then that means it's between, Barnes, Mobley, Paolo, and Kuzma. And so for me, it just depends on, because we're projecting into next year what we think is going to happen. And I think with Kuzma, this is going to be the first time since those early Laker days when they were, which is a really fascinating team to look back on, when it's like Kuzma, Ingram, Lonzo Ball, D'Angelo Russell, all those guys on the same team, and where they've all kind of spread across the NBA. And Kuzma kind of, was like the 27th pick, late first round pick, came out. And of course, Celtics fans love to bring up the Lakers fans who were saying, well, Kuzma's just as good as Jason Tatum. We got him at 27. And of course, that has not played out. But Kuzma, very early in his career, was a 20-point per game scorer in this league. And so now that basically Washington has flipped their roster over to empower him and Poole as their, their top two combination, like, it is interesting to think about, right now, Barnes versus Kuzma, because Barnes certainly took a step back in year 2. It felt like there was, I don't want to say there was regression, obviously, but it just felt like the league maybe, was more aware of Scotty Barnes, and he struggled to adjust. There was potentially some behind the scenes issues that were seemingly coming out that we don't know a ton of info about, but didn't feel great. And obviously Toronto had a very, very disappointing season. So I think you could make an argument for Barnes versus Kuzma for this year. I think long term, you're still obviously leaning Barnes.
Yeah.
I think I like Paolo enough that I think Mobley would be my 3. Paolo would be at the 4. And then I'm open to a Barnes and Kuzma debate. I'd probably lean Barnes, but I don't think it'd be crazy if someone were to come in and say, I would put Kuzma at 5 and cut Barnes out of the top.
Yeah, because the thing with Kuzma is he also like really knows how to play the game really well. He's got actually a pretty high basketball IQ. He's a good defender. He's a great rebounder. There are many games where I look at a box score, I'm like, damn, Kyle Kuzma had 15 boards last night. Like he just knows. He has a nose for the ball. He knows how to move off the ball. He's a solid shooter, definitely a better shooter than Barnes is. So if I were like starting a team for this year and I needed to win a championship this year, who would I rather have as my power forward for 2023, 2024, Barnes or Kuzma? For 1 year, I think I'd probably go Kuzma. So I'm cool cutting Barnes here. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about established talent versus potential talent, right? Like Kuzma is getting to the point where he is what he is at this point. Barnes is, most players that have a big rookie season have a down second year because teams adjust, because there's more film on the guy. People can scheme against you a little bit more. It's why if Paolo has a down year this year, nobody should be like, oh, well, he's fallen off. No, he's just adjusting to like teams know him now. He needs to improve to beat what they're doing against him. I'd go Kuzma right now based on but we're banking on Barnes improving, and that's it's a logical step for him, and it's 90% likely that it's going to happen. But right now, Kuzma is more of an all-round talent than what Scotty Barnes is. Barnes is more athleticism, raw skill, and raw talent. Kuzma, as you said, is more IQ, finesse, a bit of a savant. So I'd go Kyle Kuzma.
Greg, you're going against Giannis Jr. here?
Yeah, Scotty.
I remember that. He called it.
Scott, preseason game.
I think Adam's logic there, that like coming into this season, I think Kuzma being the established entity that what you're getting out of Kyle Kuzma versus the unknown and like the expected hoped for jump for Scotty Barnes, having adjusted to the adjustments that were made on him year 2. I think it's just better to, know what you have versus wish for something. Right. So I'd probably go with Kyle Kuzma here as well. And the Scotty, number 6 with a high ceiling. Will and I just did our fantasy draft last night for American football, Adam, and Scotty Barnes is one of those guys that could like swing a fantasy league. Because you're like, oh man, Scotty Barnes like really decided to step his shit up in the offseason. He developed a 18-foot jump shot. He doesn't need to develop a 3. Very, very much like Ben Simmons, right? Scotty Barnes is very, so, when you come into the league, you're comparing him to Giannis. Now you're probably comparing him more to Ben Simmons, because I don't think he's going to grow to 7 feet tall like Giannis did. but I think Scotty Barnes still has a pretty high ceiling. So I think number 6 is a good place to leave him at. So we all agree that Giannis is 1, Julius Randle is 2. So now we're kind of splitting hairs between Mobley, Banchero, and Kuzma. I think based on the conversation we just had, Kuzma we all feel comfortable with him at the 5th spot. So we're really just debating between Mobley and Banchero, which is pretty interesting because they're 2 of the, most promising young bigs in the league.
Yeah, that's an interesting debate. And, because I think Paolo has, interestingly enough, even though Paolo's the younger of the 2, his skill set is probably a little bit more well-rounded already versus Mobley. But I still think, Mobley, finished 2nd in defensive player of the year voting last year. Like, he's already at an elite defensive level, but his offensive skills still need to develop. And you saw that, really badly in that Knicks series, right? Where, him and Jared Allen got the shit kicked out of him by Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, and crew. So, that's where it gets interesting, because you think about what Evan Mobley really needed to reach for in that playoff series. And it was almost to a degree, man, if he had Paolo's offensive skill set, that would have actually helped the Cavs a lot more in that first round series for what they needed in that particular matchup. Having said that, I think for right now, I think between the 2 of them long term, that's a really hard decision of who I would prefer. And I don't know what my answer would be. I think for this year, I'm going to take Mobley, but I'm very open to a Paolo discussion because, like I said, I think his skill set's more well-rounded, but the fact that you can lean on Evan Mobley already as a defensive anchor for a playoff team, I think that's going to let me lean Mobley. And I saw it once again, Greg, and you and I talked about this with Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell a bit. Everyone's super down on the way the Cavs ended. But the Cavs had an awesome regular season, and towards the end of that regular season, Mobley was starting to show some promise, as an offensive playmaker, at least willing to take some outside shots more often towards the end of the season. And you were starting to see something that could be really scary. Obviously didn't happen then in the postseason. So now the momentum is lost on that. But I would personally go Mobley 3, Paolo 4, but I'm open. I want to see what you guys think. I do think it's really close.
Well, it's just interesting, like, when we were doing the point guard list, and a lot of people got upset because Trae Young wasn't in our top 5. And one of the things that we brought up, and I know that
we love hating on Trae, it's so great.
Yeah, but like one of the arguments that we made was like, why isn't Trae Young with Team USA? And just like as a player for your team, who do you want? Do you want a Jalen Brunson who's like a natural leader, a great teammate, just like has real hoop game? Like if you were starting a team at the park, like Jalen, I'd feel more comfortable with Jalen Brunson being the captain of my team versus Trae Young. And then you look at Banchero versus Mobley, and you're like, kind of same argument. Banchero's on Team USA, Mobley's not on Team USA. And we were just talking about which bigs would you want to have on Team USA moving forward. And we didn't even mention Mobley as one of those people. And Mobley's been part of,
he's being recruited to the Bahamas as well.
He is?
Yeah. So that's something that I saw the other day. So I don't know the full lineage, but obviously the Bahamas, they have DeAndre Ayton, they have Buddy Hield. They just picked up Eric Gordon. And so they're still trying to qualify for the Olympics. And there's a potential that they're looking to try to get, and Klay Thompson talked about this. So it'd be Klay, Evan Mobley, and then Evan Mobley's brother, Isaiah, is a potential of who they're recruiting, which is funny that international basketball has now become a recruiting landscape as well.
And Paolo was being recruited to Italy, right? They were upset
at one point. So that's like a big, revenge game, so to speak. For Italy, people were pissed about Paolo backing out and going to play for Team USA.
I mean, he just wanted to win the World Cup, dude.
Well, now it's USA versus Italy. So
I'm English. If you asked me to go play for Team USA tomorrow, I'd be laughing at England all the way, man. Like, yo, they defeated you back in the day for independence. Now
I don't know, man. You and OG in the backcourt, I could see that.
Who's the best? Who's the best English basketball player of all time?
Probably Deng.
Like
Is
Lou
he? Well,
Waldang?
yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true.
He represented England at all international levels.
I think he's from because I saw there was an article the other day about because like the South Sudan they won
and like his president are there,
so he probably has the ability to play for either country.
Yeah, but like the way I mean, if it's anything like soccer, which I'm assuming it is, once you represent one country, you don't that's it, you're done.
Well, that's why I think the Joel Embiid decision is such a big deal for next Olympics, right? Because he can go and play for 3 different teams, so it all depends,
And that's a literal, like, you want to talk fantasy teams swinging the advantage. Having Giannis, having Embiid choose where he's going is a big factor. But yeah, probably Lou Waldang, just because, I mean, he's the only English guy that had a legitimate career. Jeremy Sochan's out there now. I actively refuse to support anything Sochan does. I don't like OG Anunoby. I don't like England.
I feel the country love here, man.
Yeah, there ain't none at all, bro. Just to get more points in here, I think that the way I look at this is, what do you value more from your 4, right? If you're like, when you're talking about who's better, like, do you value your 4 being able to do everything offensively and being able to hang it in a team defensive system? Or do you value him being like your primary defender, but just a systematic offensive player, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Paolo at the moment gives you more upside because he is a systematic defender. He can play within a team defense and not be a targeted piece. Like, you don't hear people be like, oh, he's hunting Banchero. Like, no, it's not going to happen. He's too athletic. He's quick. He can switch. So he's not going to be a weak link for you defensively, and he's going to be one of your primary offensive pieces. Whereas Mobley is going to be a primary defensive piece, but he could, depending on the game, depending on how you want to use him, utilize his skill set, he could be an offensive weak link. And that would be why I'd go Banchero above Mobley, because no matter which side of the floor you're relying on Banchero, he's going to at least give you above average production, whereas Mobley is not going to be able to do that consistently on the offensive end.
Yeah, I'm with you with that, Adam. I'm going to go Banchero over Mobley here, because I think, to kind of continue that discussion, you could build a defense around Evan Mobley, right? You can't build a defense around Banchero, but you could build an offense around Banchero, and there's no way you could build an offense around Mobley right now. But you could like have Banchero be part of a defensive system and be perfectly happy. Like, they're using Banchero at the 5, and he's doing a hell of a job as someone who's never probably played the 5 in his life, and Banchero now is like playing 5 at a high level for Team USA, looking great. He's super quick off his feet, the chase down blocks from behind. He's a good rebounder, and he's just freaking huge, man. Like, there were times this year where as a rookie, he looked like the strongest guy on the court in the NBA. Especially against the Celtics, where we all marvel at the physical transformation of Jason Tatum. And there were a couple times this year where Banchero just bullied him. And we were like, oh, Jesus Christ, this dude's a rookie, and he's doing that to Tatum, who we all think is like this freaking Greek god now. It's pretty impressive what Banchero has already turned into and proven to be so early in his career.
Here's another way to look at it as well. And it kind of goes off what you've just said, Greg. If you were building, say you've got Evan Mobley on one hand, Paolo Banchero on another, you've got a contending team in front of you. They need a 4. So if you could you put Mobley in there and be like, he's a top 5 offensive piece on a contending team? So he's one of your best offensive players on a contending team. Could you comfortably say that? But you can with Banchero, but you could with Banchero, right? You'd feel very. Then can you say Banchero is one of the top 5 defenders on a contending team? Top 5. There's only 15 guys. Yeah, you could, but because you can only say yes to Mobley on one side of the floor, Banchero is the more well-rounded player.
Yeah, I'm cool with this. Like I said, I think it's close. So I'm cool with Paolo at 3, and just to the size part, man, I still always marvel at Paolo's size, and I feel like, especially watching on TV, when all these guys are massive, in person, it's a whole different story. Like, when you go see a game and you see a Giannis or an Embiid, the Greg, I still think about seeing, being 5 rows back at that Christmas Day game, looking at Embiid, and I'm like, holy shit, that dude is an alien. Like, there's no way a human should be that big.
Yeah, like a full head above everybody else on the court.
Yeah,
dude, I've said this to you guys both in like off air. When I walked past Tatum in that hallway when we went to Boston, like, I'm not used to looking up at people in general. Like, usually I'm looking level or down. Like, not only did I have to look up, his shoulder was as big as my head. Like just his shoulder, like that's how disproportionate he was compared to me. Like these guys, it's unfair. It's like natural selection at its finest, man.
And that's the thing, is all of these guys are so big. So for me, when because I don't really watch too much college basketball. I don't really watch too much college basketball, but I'll tune in towards the conference tournaments into March Madness, start trying to like figure out who some of the prospects are. So when I started tuning into Duke and Paolo, like this guy stood out like as if someone went into 2K. You know how sometimes someone will make their player like 7'6", 300 pounds, and they'll just look so different than everybody in the video game court. That's what Paolo looked like in college. And then when he got to the pros, like usually it's like it will kind of correct itself a little bit. He still looks massive when you look at him in the pro. So I think that's something that you just rarely see that translates on TV for how big a guy like that can be. But Paolo has just, over the last 2 years, just jumps off the screen every time he's on the court.
Definitely. So our top 5, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Julius Randle, Paolo Banchero, Evan Mobley, and Kyle Kuzma sneaking into the top 5 power forwards in the Eastern Conference. Shout out to Kuz, the drip king.
I like it, man. I think that's a pretty solid list. I think Kuzma's probably the most surprising one that I'm curious to see what people's reaction to that will be. But I think when you really look at it with the candidates available, I think it's a solid choice. Anything that stood out to you, Adam?
Do you remember the Power Rangers movie, the first one? Older, 1990.
I remember them. I don't know if I remember them as to which one specifically was.
Yeah,
so
first, I don't remember them like I remember the Secret of the Ooze and like all the Ninja Turtle movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So one of the main villains, the main villain in the first Power Rangers was Ivan Ooze.
What a name! That's a fantastic fucking name, Ivan Ooze.
So Ivan Kuz. Like that's kind of how I'm going to remember it. I just wanted to point that out. As you can see, I'm in a jovial mood. No, jokes aside, I do think that Kuz deserves this spot at 5. I think that he's slowly developed. He's been in multiple situations that haven't been great, from when he was in LA and he kind of overlooked there. He's kind of floated around, ends up in Washington. Washington suck. I'm sorry, but they will for the foreseeable future. But he's just developed away from the limelight and slowly became like a featured piece of the team's offense. And you deserve to be in top 5 for that when everybody else around you is literally still wearing NBA diapers.
Yeah, shout out to Kuz. And then, of course, Giannis was just the easy choice at number 1. We don't even have to have a conversation about it because Celtics, Bucks, they'll be battling all season. We'll have plenty of time to talk about Giannis during the season. But guys, we got the 3-man weave back together. We're crawling our way towards a real news cycle and actual Celtics basketball to talk about. But I'm always happy to chop it up with you guys here, especially on a Labor Day weekend. That's going to do it for this episode of Green with Envy. As always, appreciate y'all for checking in here. Make sure you are locked in with us across our social medias. Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. As always, we're trying to put out some more quick hitters. So if you're not aware, go check out our thoughts on Svi Mikhailuk. Hopefully I got that right. We'll see. We're working on it here, folks. We're working on it. And we'll be back with more later in the week. Greg, any final thoughts before you let us know what we're going to hear on the way out?
Yeah, I know the drill. Black Sheep Optimist. Get this high. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
I love these guys.